All right, the Yucatan Peninsula, that's this area right here. And now, backing up a little bit, it is believed that a huge asteroid, I mean more than just a meteorite, but maybe a comet or an asteroid hit this area here at one time. Now, the standard view is it hit 65 million years ago and spread a layer of ash that's found all over the globe, where you can find any ash. I mean, it threw out it broke the Earth's crust and threw out a whole lot of volcanic ash. And it led to what we might call a nuclear winter, a global winter, and led to the complete demise of the dinosaurs. Now, how many of you have heard this from other sources outside? Okay, several hands are going up. I have to admit, on a personal note, I really don't believe. I don't doubt that a big meteorite hit here, a big comet, and I don't doubt that the damage it did was huge. And what this area here is really part of a meteor crater that were on the moon. They would probably be about 100 miles across, because some of the craters on the moon are 100 or 200 miles across. And we now know that moon craters are impact craters, not volcanic. Yes?
You think that the meteor that hit at that time might have set off some of the calderas?
Salt come out of what?
Set off some of the calderas, like Yellowstone.
All right, I'm not questioning that either. I mean, I don't doubt that a big meteorite, call it comet, call it asteroid, we don't know what. I don't doubt that something big hit. Now, speaking of meteorites hitting, again, when I was a child, I used to read a lot of astronomy books, and astronomers in the 1950s said, oh, the chances of anything hitting the Earth are small. Fast forward, we have better telescopes, we found that there are millions or more bodies that cross Earth's path every few years. And odds are that something's going to hit the Earth every 100 years. Well, something hit the Earth here in Siberia in 1908. Fast forward another 100 years, and we had 2 strikes in the Earth in 2013. One of them here in Russia that caught the Russians by surprise and led someone to believe that they were being invaded by the United States. But anyway, leaving that, the Yucatan Peninsula, the area where the Mayans lived, their big city was Maya. The big city was Capan. And yes, I have been to Capan one time. At Capan, they have a stadium where they played their ball games. They were trying to get this ball through the hoop, and we don't know if they had any rules, just 2 teams, and get that ball to the other side of the court any old way you can, kick, bite, shove, and there were no rules as far as we know. And the losers were sacrificed. No officials to enforce the rules, they just simply kept score. Again, the world's biggest, now not the world's tallest. Your book shows a picture of the pyramids of Egypt, particularly the Great Pyramid and the 2 pyramids that accompany it. And your book shows a picture of the pyramid at Capan. The pyramid at Capan has more volume, but the pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Egypt is actually taller, but it doesn't spread out as much. The difference too is the Pyramid of Egypt appears to have been made of stones. The Pyramid at Capan was made of earth. So we can understand at least how it was built. You get enough people to pile up enough earth long enough, and they'll build a pyramid. But the pyramids of Egypt, folk, are a big mystery. I mean, I've heard, and again, you can believe what you want to, I've heard that we do not have the machinery today to move the stones that they had to move and lift them up as high as they had to lift them to get the pyramids of Egypt built. Now, we don't know why the Mayan civilization fell. But it was in an advanced state of decay before the Europeans came, and you might say finished them off. If the Europeans had not come, the Mayans would have fallen. Actually, they're pretty well fallen. But they had enough left of the civilization that when Europeans met them, they had 9 books, the 9 sacred books. And the European priest learned how to read their language, and he was not at all impressed with what he read. He told his fellow Spaniards what he had read in the books. The fellow Spaniards said, "This is the work of the devil," and they destroyed 5 of the books permanently. But 4 have survived. Then this priest died, and for many years, nobody, not even the Mayans, could read their text. But in modern times, with the aid of computers and with the people who knew the Mayan language, the books were written in the Mayan, and there were still some people who spoke Mayan. We were eventually able. Now, when I was there in 1976, the Mayan script had not been deciphered. I said to myself, I'm going to wait until it's deciphered, and I want to read it. I'm anxious to see what they say. In 1981, they had pretty well deciphered it. And no, I'm not the least bit anxious to read it, and I don't really care much what it says. These people would let blood out of their bodies long enough to where when it had bled enough, they would go into, the brains became defective, and they started going to hallucinations. And they believed that the visions they saw in this hallucinogenic state were messages from the gods. And their gods would then tell them whether they should go to war or not. And also they told them why they were to offer human sacrifices and the purpose behind the human sacrifices and how the human sacrifices would appease the anger of the gods and guarantee good crops. Now, why did the Maya fall? There have been speculations that the Mayans over-farmed their land, or they, in the process of farming, they cleared out land and destroyed their rainforest, otherwise known as jungles. And it's known the Mayans did go in and hack away at the rainforest some, and it felt like that the rainforest was very beneficial and they should have left these rainforests alone. This is a viewpoint we'll find from environmentalists. Be that as it may, a lot of people believe that warfare, in other words, warfare from within and without, that because the human sacrifice and the enslavement of a lot of the people, their slaves rebelled. And a problem you have in a slave society is constant rebellion. And sometimes, folk, the slaves will eventually win, particularly if the slaves are averaging about 8 or 10 babies per family, and your civilized people, your non-slave owners are only averaging 2 or 3. The time comes when the slaves actually outnumber their masters. I mean, it outnumbers them greatly. And they feel like, hey, this is our chance, we can move, let's go get them. And they'll try it. And it's believed that there's a possibility that the slaves might have overthrown their masters in the Maya and brought the civilization of Maya down to a standstill. In the case of the Maya, we do have the name of one king, King Pakal. Became king through his mother, because his mother was a member of the royal line. And the mother and son kind of ruled together for about 25 years. He made his mother into a goddess. Again, one of the few instances we have where we know the name of an individual Indian. For the most part, when you study Indian history, you study maybe the names of tribes, but the names of individual chieftains or great conquerors or great leaders, we don't know. Again, that's partly because we can't read their writing, and partly because they seem to not count the individual for so much. They did not make monuments. I mean, they didn't issue coins with Caesar's picture on the coin or an image of Caesar on the coin. They did not make monuments to any of their former rulers. We have a statue of Julius Caesar to this day, and I believe Caesar Augustus also. The Romans made these statues and preserved the memory of these people. Go to Great Britain and go to Westminster Abbey, you'll find statues of King Henry II, who ruled about 900 years ago, and Richard the Lionhearted, his son. And they were made, these statues were made by people who actually were alive at the time and saw them. So we believe they have pretty good likeness of the kings that they're representing. The Mayans worshipped several gods, but they had one who was the top of the totem pole. Now, I'm not going to ask you to learn the name of their gods, but they had several. And again, your book mentions that they played a ball game, and the losers of the ball game were sacrificed in a ceremony held right after they closed the game. There may have been some women's teams. We don't know all the rules of the games. Most of the players apparently were men. Mayan calendar. Mayan calendar goes back to 3000 BCE. It required a lot of mathematics. In other words, it took hundreds of years of observations. All right, now, how well could you do without a telescope? If you keep observing and keep documenting and keep observing and documenting, you can get the, for instance, the rotation period of the Earth around the sun down to within a minute. You can't do it in 1 year of observation without a telescope. But if you keep observing year in and year out, and if you observe the moon year in and year out over generations, you can get the period of time that the moon orbits the Earth down to about a minute or so. Again, it takes years and years of careful documentation and observation. Then you get to where you can predict eclipses. And by the way, we had a celestial event occur this morning, which I happened to see. Blood moon. Did any of you happen to see it? Total eclipse of the moon. Yeah, we had a total eclipse of the moon that occurred this morning. If you didn't see it, I did, and I recorded it on my camera. When I do this, I happen to wake up before I was supposed to, and I thought, well, I'll get up. I observed it getting started. Started around 5:15. By 6:25, it was total. On the way over here, I stopped my car at a quick trip and looked at it. Then I got here at 1,000 covered campus. But by that time, I mean, I saw the total eclipse. And I did not see it turn red, though. But anyway, it's one of 4 eclipses that occurred. The one already occurred. This is eclipse number 2 within a couple of years, so there'll be 2 more. And they're called blood moons. And they all, by coincidence, occur in conjunction with Jewish holidays. Call it coincidence, call it what you will. But today was one of them. Having said that, now, folk, again, I know some of you think I go off on a deep end. You can think what you want to, but I'll say this. The Mayans had a fascination with the planet Venus. Now, they set up a Venus calendar, and folk, we can't explain that because even as recently as when I was a kid, we did not know the rotation period of the planet Venus. But now we have, since satellites there, we have better methods of observing, and we have learned that Venus is the only body in the solar system we know of where the sun rises in the west and it sets in the east. Now Venus' rotational period on its axis is almost as long as its day. I mean, almost as long as its year. Yes, as long as it. So basically on Venus, you'd find the sun coming up in the west. A day would be about, I forget how long, something like 80 days of our calendar long. And then the night would be about 80 more days. The Mayans seem to have known this. And they set up a calendar of, apparently a calendar of Venus, and folk, we cannot explain how they do about this phenomena without the telescope, but even with our telescopes. All we ever see of Venus through a telescope is white. A layer of clouds completely envelops the planet. Now, again, when I was a kid, I had a fascination with Venus. We were hoping we could find life there. We thought maybe those clouds keep much of the heat of the sun out, and beneath those clouds is a cool surface. But then in 1965, we finally got our answer. the clouds do not do anything to keep the heat out. And the surface temperature of Venus is 800 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt both tin and lead. We have mapped the surface pretty well when it shows that one time Venus had liquid water, one time it had conditions right for life. Just like Mars apparently had water, Mars shows lakes and rivers. Venus shows where at one time there were oceans. And the atmosphere still contains a whole lot of water, even though the water obviously is boiled away. And the big question is what happened to Venus to make it turn hot? And again, I'll leave you to speculate on that one. There's a lot of research been done on it. Venus is the nearest Earth's twin in the solar system. Its gravity pull is 6/7 that of Earth. So if you weighed 100 pounds on Earth, you'd weigh 83 pounds. Well, that's 5'6". About 85 to 86 pounds on Venus. A little bit lighter than you would on Earth. On Mars, that's down to about 38 pounds. Don't write that down, but just something to go in. But anyway, the Mayans had a fascination with the planet Venus. They set up a calendar that included Venus, and folk, again, we're having a hard time understanding how did they know so much about Venus and why. Again, your book tells, and I'll repeat again, how the Spanish did not like what they found from the Maya and destroyed 5 of the Mayan 9 books. The book shows a picture of, again, the Mayan writing reminds us a lot of Egyptian hieroglyphics, and I made a mention earlier that Chinese writing also looks like hieroglyphics. And your book compares a death mask that's found in China to this a very similar phenomena found in the Maya.